So what's going on today? We're talking about the
Good
present.
question.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
so
right now.
Epanine.
Jesus. Episode
2
69 plus 1.
Part 2, yeah.
69 and a half.
Yeah.
Bring a plus 1. So yeah, back with Trey Knight, Knights Armament.
Today
present.
we're going to talk about what's going on. What's up?
All right,
What's up?
All right, go.
Yeah. All right. So, yeah. I think you look at like the markets that KAC's been in or tried to be in. You know what I mean? We've always been comfortable with government contracts, and that's kind of always been our bread and butter, and kind of how we've structured our business is based off of contract, production. And I personally made a huge effort to try to enter or be in the commercial market, which was difficult for us because our shit is expensive. You know what I mean? And there's a lot of really good competition out there. There's a lot of other companies doing a lot of good stuff. And honestly, I would say that the average consumer, they don't need our stuff. You know what I mean? They're not going to notice the difference between, what a KC rifle really is or something else that they can buy, whether it's suppressors or guns or whatever. So it was kind of a hard market to get in that, and the marketing aspect of it, and all those other things. So
yeah, I guess that's probably a trickier one for you guys and a lot of companies, because you have to worry so much about your military customer. It's not like you always win a big Army contract and you go promote it.
Right.
Like how do you market effectively without doing something, I won't say offend, but that you
anti-marketing,
Yeah, so I don't know. I think one thing good that has happened the last few years, a lot of guns have gotten very expensive. So I think for a gun, I mean, whether it's like the Scar or some of the HK guns and stuff like that, the Honey Badger even, people are expecting to pay more, and there's a bigger customer base. They're willing to pay more for something like a Knights Armament rifle, I think. Seems like good timing right now.
Yeah, I mean, you look at like the gray market for Knights guns, the fact that they're going for more than what they pay for. You know what I mean? Yeah. So whether you call it an investment or whatever, it's our guns, we have an incredible fan base, that really does appreciate. It's a small fan base, but they really do get it and appreciate it, and they like these clones and stuff that they build. It's it's awesome. You know what I mean? Because
it is an interesting new part of the market that you and I probably never thought. I mean, think of the old things that we've thrown away, things that you gave me that I probably gave to someone that would be like
super valuable.
Oh yeah. Now, because I mean, Jay, what do you think? Like that upper, that upper is marked KAC or something on it,
right?
Like that whole upper.
I think there was 12 of those ever made.
What would that thing sell for now? And I would never sell it.
Well, think about. I mean, people are paying $4,000 plus for a current SR-15 upper.
Just an upper, yeah.
Like just up.
How much?
$4,000 plus.
Yeah.
That's probably what I paid for this whole gun.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for the 16-inch SR-15 upper.
Right.
You're paying for $4,500.
Yeah.
So like
retail.
Let's go back in. So in an effort to like make a commercial gun, you know what I mean? We made a gun specifically for the commercial market. You know what I mean? You don't sell 16-inch 5.56 uppers to a government customer, and I wouldn't say they're built in the same line, roughly the same components, but there was some differences, like specifically in the bolt. But there was a big effort to try to make a commercial gun or try to worry about a price point, and as of recently, with supply chain issues, and you call it COVID or whatever the reason is, you know what I mean, a politics or whatever, it was difficult for us to kind of maintain so many product lines, because guess what? I still have to build M110s. Guess what I'm building right now in the shop? A bunch of these.
That's so funny. That's older than Jay.
A bunch of these.
It's older than Jay, and that's so awesm. It's still in production. Well, the M110 is probably as old as you. I don't know. When was that? 2000 or something, maybe?
2007.
That's not that old.
Yeah. No, but I mean, it's still, it's not a super brand new platform.
Well, no, what sucks for us is it's like, I've got better silencers than that. You know what I mean? There's been numerous upgrades to all of our stuff. That's what we do. You know what I mean? We constantly are upgrading, trying to figure something out, or something changes. Like, well, we want it to fire this caliber, or we want it to have a shorter barrel, or we want it to do this. So you have to change stuff, And I think that's like really, that is what makes KAC. Because we control all our parts, we make all our parts, is if we want to make a change or upgrade something, then we do it. But at the same time, I may have a military customer or something under contract where I still have to deliver M110 parts that were designed, and I don't want to build them anymore, but I have to build them to support it.
Support the contract. Isn't it interesting too when those Knights obviously?
And when I say I mean KAC. I am not KAC. I would like to clarify that.
Well, if it's interesting too when you think about this, because I know the testing, like these guns went through. I mean, internal testing, and then for the customer, like that customer puts that gun through real testing.
Yeah.
And then if you want to change one part, even if you can improve it in the shop,
they got to go do it again.
Yeah. And so even for you guys, even commercially, when you think about that, it's like, I know you guys aren't going to build something and not test it and just put it on the market. And there's so many of the customers now, the Reddit customers, that think all of the bolts are the same, or all barrels are the same, or they don't even understand, concentricity of the chamber to the bolt, like any of these other nuances. And if you change one little part in there, the butterfly effect of that it can have. And so sometimes, like, a better part, it's not worth doing because it's going to take us $1.5 year and $500,000 to test it.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's not that big of an improvement.
Yeah. So
frustrating.
So we haven't taken commercial orders for firearms in a minute. You know what I mean? We shut down 5.56 gun sales a long time ago, and I think within the last 6 months we've shut down orders on 7.62 guns, just to try to give a more realistic expectation to our customers of when they're going to receive a gun from us, and not oversell or whatever else.
What is it right now? What are people? They can't order the guns now. So ones that are on order.
I mean,
what do you think
we are building guns. You know what I mean? And we
people waiting years for them at this point, or
I would say we are probably somewhere within a year of filling all the back orders that are in place. And the goal is to build. We have an amount of parts, you know what I mean, in process for the current configuration guns, and we're going to build those and then sell them once they're built. I'm not going to take pre-orders. Basically going to build everything we got and then sell them from inventory.
But it's so interesting knowing all of the customers and groups that you guys still support. That's a tough commercial thing.
So
if something happens like 9/11, like, guess what? You're not getting your gun for 2 years.
That's exactly what made us have. That's exactly what made us have to shut down orders. Is we had to reserve our materials to be able to support all of our contracts.
So you think about that, even doing all of your own parts, like when he says vendors, he's just trying to get like
raw materials
of metal.
Yeah. I'm not talking about
machines,
finished parts. I'm talking about raw extrusion, forgings. You know what I mean?
But I think that's always been a thing, and now half of our adulthood, almost lives, we've been in a war.
Yeah.
And so it's real hard to predict when you're trying to fulfill that stuff, and like, where do you put the resources?
Our resources at the end of the day go to our government and foreign military contracts, because if you screw that up, number one, there's penalties, and number two, you won't be invited back to that, you'll be kicked out of that club, so to speak. So
yeah, and it is a more important customer.
Yeah.
In the end, it just is. I mean, it makes sense.
So, but current KC, you know what I mean? We've when we moved from Vero to Titusville, our shop, our capabilities, all that was dramatic times 10. Yep. You know what I mean? As far as our resources, everything else, and it's kind of like. It's like moving into a giant house or something. You know what I mean? You gotta buy all that furniture. You gotta, and people. We talk about stuff all the time, but at the end of the day, it's people.
Yeah, there you go. It's the resource that's the most important.
It's like people are the number one thing, and it's like I cannot the people at KC are that is the company. You know what I mean? That is. The machines are nothing without the people that are there, that you either build the parts, test the parts, put the parts together, sales staff, like, Jack, those team, the sales staff team, it's like they do this from the absolute bottom of their hearts. You know what I mean? And it's a lot to like juggle. And I think that my dad, I wouldn't say underestimated. I think it's just maybe, it's like you said before, it's a huge chain, and you have to have every link in the chain has to be that strong, or whatever.
Yeah, it's such a difficult thing. I mean, not even on the scale of KAC, but when we started Q and we're like going to jump right in with the fix, a whole gun that is completely new and unique, and it's amazing how much more difficult that is. Like, that's jumping in the deep end of the pool, like building silencers and some accessories and all. Big deal.
Well, I mean, look at Magpul. I mean, it's like, yeah, we're gonna make a gun. It's like, yeah, okay, all right. You know what I mean? Like, everybody.
Yeah.
No one is making a new gun. Tell me some new guns. Yeah.
The
okay.
fix?
Yeah. No, I mean, yeah, absolutely. Even
you're right.
Brownell's making that gun. You know what I mean? The whatever 180
little
gun.
AR.
Yeah. I mean, even though that's a copy, I would actually love to shake one of those down.
Yeah.
But it's still, there's really not that
an
much
original design.
There's not that much new under the sun. You know what I mean? You look at
so expensive to go and do. Like, even like the Honey Badger. There's a reason 12 years later we're the only ones making the Honey Badger, and I thought we would only sell like 1,000 of them. But like that gun is difficult. Like, it requires, just like you guys do, basically all new parts.
Yep.
There's very few parts in that gun that are ARs, just like your gun here. Some springs and maybe a safety, some plungers, pins. That's about it.
Yeah. For ejection port cover door.
Maybe. Well, you guys probably did that.
It is actually longer on the new ones. So, yeah.
Yeah. So.
So like, current KC, I would say current KC is obviously, there was a huge effort to kind of look at the commercial market, figure out where we fit into it or what we could do there, make products for it. And I wouldn't say that was a failure. But we certainly never sold the type of or number of guns as say a Daniel Defense or a company like that. You know what I mean? We just flat out couldn't produce that many guns. We can put them together. You know what I mean? And I always kind of had to reevaluate, like remember the Nighthawk package with the 1911 and the knife and everything. It's like, that was such a cool thing and such a cool project. And I remember having a bunch of them. They wouldn't sell. Now, mind you, it was expensive, but it was like, that's not what our customer base wanted. They want something that we sell to, they don't want something different for them. They want a copy of what we supply to a government agency or
Well, I wouldn't have agreed, when you and I probably had this discussion 20 years ago, 10 years ago. We've probably always been having this discussion. And I probably wouldn't have agreed that this is what your customer wanted then, because I don't think there wasn't as many customers. They didn't know, and the guns were so expensive compared to other things on the market. And I think social media even has gotten the word out about this. Cloners, video games. And so now you can go and watch YouTube videos, and you've produced videos, and you guys have done a series of that stuff of, how this gun's different, who it's built for, why it's so expensive, and you start to understand it. And we have a lot more people now that are into it, I think, that have money.
Yeah.
And so,
it's a little bit of, you know what I mean? It's a little bit of, we're kind of in, I would say that current KC is kind of in a little bit of a transition. You know what I mean? And maybe we've been in that transition for a period of time. But basically, and how to think about being able to build higher quantities of parts, trying to think about being more of a mass production, place, which, mind you, this is a company that built, at a certain time period, we were producing 30,000 rail systems a month. You know what I mean? That's That's no joke, dude. Just
you know what you and I would be having to do, Jay? We'd just be
folding boxes like in the pizza. You'd be making boxes, dude. You know, like legit. Just think about that. You know, just the plating operation. So we really are to a high level a master of a lot of our processes. We even, you know, our own plating company.
Yeah, I was going to say you guys were doing anodizing 20 years ago.
10 to 15 years ago. But all that stuff is hard. You know what I mean? It's no joke. You know what I mean? And you know, heat treat processes. That's one thing that we have to rely on, you know, other people for, or even barrel materials or whatever. So, I think that, you know. And the idea, so that we still have to produce a gun that we may have designed 20 years ago, or a silencer that we, you know, designed, you know, 20 something years ago. That you know, it's not. This wasn't designed to be built by a robot. This was designed to be built by a dude sitting there welding it by hand. You know what I mean? And guess what? You can only have so many welders. You can only physically, you know what I mean? So it's something you cannot. This is not a mass producible item, and it wasn't designed to be, because that wasn't a thought at the time.
With that said, how many have been built?
Oh man, shit. I would say once we're done, it's going to be well over 100,000. You know what I mean? You know, delivered to the government. You know what
between
I mean?
that and the M4 2000, I think those are the most like prolific cans that I've seen in my life. And the SOCOM can more recently, but yeah,
dude, this can like this will be like cockroaches. Like after the nuclear war, these things will be like still around. They'll be picking them up. Like, what was this? You know what I mean? you know?
Yeah, it is interesting. It's when I think about, people ask me about advanced armament and seeing, you know, Remington eventually kill that. But one thing I am thankful for with Q is, like, I don't have to deal with all that stuff from 25 years ago.
Right. Oh, man. It's so difficult. Like, what people don't understand, like, when you start with a clean sheet of paper, it is so nice because you're not stuck with anything. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think it relieves lots of stress for me, really, honestly.
I mean, from so many levels. I mean, it's like even, I remember, like, changing our logo however long ago. And,
oh, yeah. Good job with that one, by the way.
Yeah. It's better, but it's, you know what I mean? It's like, you can't, I mean, the only word I can think of is legacy. You know what I mean? It's like this is what we are. You know what I mean? And you always look at like where you want to be, but you can't just like, you know, what was that country singer that like just all of a sudden had a new like persona? You know, he just all of a sudden was
Chris
like
Gaines.
Yeah. You can't Chris Gaines this thing. You know,
Come out tomorrow with We're daytime armament.
Yeah. Like Prince, we start calling ourselves just a symbol or something, you know. So it's like, you know, growth is like, you know, or whatever, and you're not totally in control of it. You know what I mean? It's like all of a sudden you get a contract for something. You're like, guess what we're doing, kids? Get the band back together, fire up the frickin' CNCs. We're building rails. You know what I mean? And guess what? We are building M4 and M5 rails in the shop right now. You know what I mean? That's taking up the machines that would be building something new or something else that we wanted to build. So yeah, current KC is a powerhouse. You know what I mean? Compared to our size, it's you got to remember it's run by one guy, my dad. You know what I mean? He wants to do something. Guess what we're doing tomorrow? That. You know what I mean? There's no board of directors. There's nobody to go talk to go run something by or get approval from. It's like, guess what we're doing, kids? Freaking get in the bus. You know, which it's a blessing and a curse. You know what I mean? But you know, we're kind of like. We have the resources in our big company, especially like you look at our R&D or our testing and our design is probably, I'm going to say it's in the top 2 or 3 of the world.
You start thinking about, and they build night vision and thermal devices in this building. It's ridiculous.
Oh yeah. So, you know, I would say we're the king of I-squared inline sights. I mean, like that idea of putting a night vision device in front of another optic, that shit is hard, dude.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That is, you know.
Well, since we're talking present, is that still going on?
Yeah, we have a new PVS 30 lightweight, which is it's a slightly lighter weight. It's quite a bit lighter, but it's about the same size. And of course, tubes have gotten better. So we basically have some upgrade programs for this. PVS 30s were brought back and either refurbished or changed over to the new version with a higher FOM white phosphorus tube.
Yeah.
You know, and
are those available commercially?
Yeah.
Oh, you can.
Yeah.
I was gonna say I have a picture of someone with a 24 on a minifix.
Oh,
Yeah,
really?
well, 24s aren't really a thing anymore, but
Right,
there's a
but-
number of the PVS
Probably what I have upstairs.
30s that were brought in on trade, and then they were released to the commercial market instead, and as upgrades. So there was a number of those. I think 3,000 or 4,000 that hit the market at about half the price of a new one.
Ooh.
Yeah, which was pretty good deal. But again, that kind of filled the market, so no one's going to go buy the new one, with a hot tube in it. And tubes are expensive. You know what I mean?
I was going to say, how much is that?
A
device?
PVS 30, you know what I mean? I'm going to say let's call it a round number of 10 grand. You know what I mean?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I always
Somewhere
think
around there.
I just assumed it would be
But
more.
you got to
I
think
don't know.
about the tube in it. You know what I mean? That we have to buy. That you know what I mean? That's and it's a like.
Oh, you
you
don't
ever
make
seen
your
how
own tubes?
dude? You know how they make those?
No, tell me.
All right, this is crazy. You know what? A tube basically is tiny pieces of glass, thinner, like 1/10 of the size of your hair, and they stretch it like freaking like taffy and fold it and fold it and fold it. There's I think maybe. I'm sure Russia, but there's probably, there's only 2 in the United States, manufacturers of those tubes. And they always say, well, this is such an outdated thing. It's going to go digital. It's going to change over. And the thing about, it's an analog device, okay? And we were talking about music and like tube amps or whatever, So the thing about an analog device is your eye and your brain work at a certain frequency, right? And digital devices have not caught up with the ability of your brain and your eye to process information. So when you put a digital device on your head and move it around, it doesn't have the same refresh rate as your brain. So it doesn't work. You know what I mean? When we're about 4-fold off of what your brain can do from an analog device, but an analog device is kept up with that. So this thing that was designed freaking 60, 70 years ago, you know what I mean? It will keep up with your brain. That's why like virtual reality and all those things aren't quite there yet, is because your brain is faster than what a computer can do. You know what I mean? As far as the refresh rate. So it's about, like the hot shit TV or whatever, 240 hertz, something like that. You know what I mean? Your brain, if you look at what your brain does when you're moving your head around, it's over 1,000 hertz, which, we're 4-fold off of it. So you can think about the idea of, well, shit, now I got to put a battery in this thing. Like that's a TV set that's plugged into the wall.
Yeah.
So the idea that you got to make a battery and have that on you, it's just, we're not there yet. So analog night vision is still here and probably will be here for a little while,
Yeah, and like you were saying, like 10 grand isn't. I mean, that's competitive for night vision, but does that create its own challenge where to get guy? I mean, not necessarily that you're aiming at the commercial market, but for the ones that are on the commercial market, does it create the challenge of guys going, well, it's a different capability because it's inline night vision, but for 8 grand, 10 grand, guys can get like a set of dual tubes or whatever.
For nods, for wearable.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
Well, I think that so we had a foray into PVS 14 type devices. We acquired a product line from a guy, a company, really smart guy, and it's all the shoes and attachments to basically be able to use 2 PVS 14s together with a dual setup. Which to me, I always you gotta have duals, you gotta have the goggles. Well, why don't I just have 2 of them, and then I can take one off and I can hand it to you, or I can put one on my gun, or I can do this. You can't put a pair of goggles on your gun, dude.
Oh, yeah.
Right. So, and there's this idea of, okay, well, I got a device, you know what I mean? And what if I had 4 or 5 different devices and I can plug them into that same thing or put one on my gun? So I think, again, that idea of modular night vision is super viable, as opposed to something that only does one thing. You can't put a PVS 30 on your freaking head, dude.
Well,
you know what I mean?
well.
So there's, to me, there is a value to a device that can fit, 2 or 3 different roles, and be modular and used together and synced up and all that, But yeah, we've made some thermals and worked on thermal programs. Just talking about digital night vision, and we're in the middle of a program right now, and I will tell you, it is the most humbling thing in the world to think, oh, I got this idea, man. We're going to change the world. We're going to do this. Yeah, okay. Make it.
Yeah.
And then make it. Not one. Make it. Produce them and make them be able to live in an environment and everything. You're competing. It's one thing to like be in the gun world and compete with HK or SIG or whoever. You know what I mean? But go roll against L3 or Harris, or go roll against frickin' frickin' DRS or Saffron, or you know what I mean. You're talking about multi-billion worldwide companies, dude. They could buy KC and frickin' throw them in the garbage, frickin' not even notice. You know what I mean? You know, it's like you are rolling with the biggest big dog companies in the world.
Always somebody richer, bigger.
Yeah. Well, you know, so it's like, well, how have we survived in that world? You know what I mean? And that's kind of the thing, is like, nobody makes the best everything. You know what I mean? There's somebody that makes this sensor, or somebody makes that lens, or somebody makes that whatever. And KAC has kind of survived in this area in the middle where we have credibility with those companies. You know what I mean? Most of the dudes that work there, we did a deal with 10 years ago, they don't even work there anymore. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like, and you know, you can say a lot about my dad, whatever, you know, as far as his business, you know, he's cutthroat, badass businessman. But at the end of the day, he tells you something, it's no fucking lie. That is going to happen. So like his credibility, and just flat out trustworthiness as far as working with multiple big companies like that, that's a thing. You know what I mean? To be able to, like, you know, you got two huge companies, multi-billion-dollar companies that are competing with each other, and for us to be able to be in the middle and like, you know what, I'm gonna get this part from you and this part from you, and we're gonna put them together and we're gonna make something. They can't do that, you know, with themselves.
Oh,
so it puts us in a weird spot where we're able to work with multiple companies. So yeah, night vision. Yeah, that is definitely a current state of Knights. You know what I mean? We're building PVS 30s and working on you know, new devices, and we, you know, doing the modular monocle you know, type devices. So that's definitely a huge aspect of KC. You know what I mean? And something that's certainly takes up as much bandwidth as the guns at a lot of times, especially financially, as far as, you know.
Yeah,
development.
Yeah, I can't imagine financially what it would take to do that. Do you guys find it now, because Cape Canaveral was kind of dead for a while,
right?
And now it's not so much.
Thanks, Elon Musk.
Yeah. So, because you guys are just right across the water there.
From the Cape. I mean,
because you watch the launches from the top of the factory.
Yeah.
So, is it harder now to get employees?
I think that maybe. There? Absolutely. You know what I mean? Absolutely. But I would say that I really do feel that we are in an area that is going to be super protective of any kind of political, economic events. You know what I mean? What's going on in our area right now? There's multiple companies moving in. There's multiple high tech jobs that are opening up. And so, yeah, maybe they drew from, you know, we lost some employees there, but at the end of the day, hopefully, you know what I mean, in 5-10 years, I think there's going to be a way more qualified workforce to be able to do what we need to do. You know, where you go, you're up here in the north where all the smart people live, and no offense to, you know, where I live, but you know what I'm saying.
We did win the war.
You want to have another one? Oh man,
that cut deep. Yeah, but I mean, you're right, because we're not even an hour from MIT.
You know what I mean? That's I mean, all, you know, whenever you want to come talk to a night vision guy, I guess where you got to travel up here. That's where all the smart people live. You know what I mean? So, you know.
What else is going on? Did you tell me? And you may not even want to mention this, but you guys have now a McLaren dealership, and you're building a gun store at KC.
Yeah. So, currently, you know, we talked about the past, you know, of Knights and my dad's connection with cars and everything, and
Lawmans for that matter.
They're two different subjects. You know, Lawmans. I'll talk about that first. I've been running Lawmans for like 15 years or so, and they were down in Vero Beach, and because it was down there, and because I was so, you know, tied up with Knights, it, you know, kind of took a back seat to a lot of things. But we've moved them up there. You know, I hired a girl that has experience, and she's super laser focused on that business. And we're actually opening a walk-in store, which is going to be, you know, it's going to be badass. You know what I mean?
It's going to be so crazy. So you buy a McLaren, you drop a few $100,000 on a car, and then you walk in a gun store, and it makes SR25 seem cheap. It's like, it's the tax.
Well, the McLaren, you know, thing is there right now, just as a temporary situation. My dad, they're opening a dealership in, you know, closer to Orlando, so that's just temporarily housed there. But you know, the connections between, especially something like a McLaren, those supercars, the technology that goes into those cars. And, I've been to the McLaren factory before, and it's just like, it is really amazing. So we talked about the connections between like the car world and the gun world.
The money spent on Formula One stuff. Oh,
yeah, and like where have they ever been able to recoup it? And they struggle with it. Like they're trying to have, okay, we're gonna just spend all our money on racing. It's like, well, you want to make something and try to make some money. So McLaren has never really been able to be super successful in selling cars because it's not what they're really set out to do. They just want to win races. And it's like, well, now we got to make something. I think there's a really strong, maybe symbolism to Knights a little bit between a company like that. We didn't want to like actually have to make these and sell them to a bunch of people. We were just making them to win. But Lawman's has been fun.
But this is cool that you guys are down there because so many people go to Orlando for vacation, destination spot, going to Florida in general.
Yeah.
So you used to could just ride by Knights and wave, but now you'll be able to at least go there, go in the gun store. Because you guys have IMT, which everybody will call it the Knights Museum there, but the resource collection, the firearms, which is incredible. And I don't know if you guys even allow people to go in it.
We do. It's since COVID, it's been tough. So there's scheduled tours or whatever. That's a whole nother subject, man. I really, really want, and my dad does too. It's like how do you share that? You know what I mean? Because it's like the resources it would take to turn it into an actual museum and make everything secure and make it handicap accessible and make everything,
have people run it every day.
Yeah, I mean, and then how do you make
knowledgeable people,
and how do you make it sustainable? You know what I mean? How do you make it to where somebody's going to go pay $15 or $20 to go visit and look at it and make enough money to keep the lights on and have it secure? And
I don't know. I mean, you talk about the value of that collection,
right? Yeah.
I mean, not even thinking about there's stuff there that's priceless, but you got to put $1 on it. But then, because I can't imagine. When you were putting it together, and you guys moved up there, and you and I spent a lot of time in it, and us running across stuff, and we're probably more knowledgeable than most people, and it was like, what the hell is this?
Yeah, well, it can literally change all of history. You'll find one thing, and you'll be like, holy shit, they didn't do this first. They did this first.
That's so your dad. Every time we're in there, he come over. Brittingham, look at this. What do you think this is? He's like, yeah, the other thing you thought was something? 7 years earlier.
Well, you're literally, you're changing what in it, especially when he got into the
having
stuff.
To revise books then.
Yeah. Well, you mean Wikipedia's not up to date on the freaking. But, that's what was really cool when he kind of stepped outside of modern firearms and started collecting historical firearms, is it really is the birth of American manufacturing, you know what I mean, and American engineering, you know what I mean, and to see it, these artifacts, it really tells such a killer story.
It is interesting. I mean, it was
no pun intended.
but we're here in Exeter, which is where I live, and it is the revolutionary capital. Mm-hmm. So capital before it was America, and it was the first thing we needed to produce for firearms. Yeah, like it really was.
Well, I mean, the biggest thing up here was the water sources that were used to run the machinery. So that's why all the gun companies
are here.
All the manufacturing started up here is because you guys had the
river running right through town here.
Had the water to do
Springfield's right down the way too.
Yeah. So that's why, in my opinion. And then just the engineering and smart people, whatever. But we was farming down there in the south.
But it is interesting to think. You're right with manufacturing. It was the first thing that America needed to manufacture. To become
farm equipment and guns. You know what I mean? Yeah. Especially if you're going to have a war with somebody.
Yeah. But so going back to Knights, so you'll be able to go to Knights Armament at least to go in the gun store, knowing there's going to be all kinds of awesome guns from the collection and stuff in the store.
Yeah, and that you can buy them.
I can't, but someone can buy them.
We'll pull our money. We go down there and get a back 10 or something.
That kind of brings up something. It's like I've always, I always say running a distributor company where you're buying products from other manufacturers, it's really given me a perspective when running night sales staff or running our departments of how you want to treat your distributors or dealers, because you don't want to be screwed over by the manufacturer and all this shit that they do. You know what I mean? Man, I remember, we were Sig distributor or whatever, and they shipped us like $50,000 worth of, shitty pistols that they were making at the time, and then freaking canceled our distributorship like with a letter, like with the shipment. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? You're like, dude, you know what I mean?
You know all the stuff that all the shit you bought to get the stuff you wanted?
Yeah.
Well, here's all the shit. Goodbye.
Yeah. Goodbye. Thank you. Yeah, so it's like, you don't want to be treated like that. Lawman's just got on with Glock. We're a Glock distributor, which that's no easy task. You know what I mean? It's a high volume, very cutthroat, big time company with a lot of rules. So, it's always given me a good education on how the big boy companies do business, and then what works, what doesn't work, what I like, what I don't like. So it kind of gives you an opportunity to eat at the restaurant instead of be the chef, so to speak.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Those we can buy. We can go down there and buy some
Glocks.
Buy Glocks.
I got to get a 34, so.
No, dude, unless you're former military law enforcement. Yeah, former military. Yeah. Also, you have to be from Florida.
Oh, never mind.
You look like you're from Florida.
He kind of does.
Sketchy.
Yeah.
You fit right in.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's been a big effort for me. Of growing Lawman's and then just opening a retail store, which I'm architecture, whatever.
It's gonna be
nerd,
over the top.
Yeah, I love that stuff. I love design, especially on a level where you can walk around and look at it.
It's so important, and so many people don't think about it. But when you're in like this, the room now is like a mess, and we need to straighten it up. But when you're in a place that is interesting and you can make it feel comfortable and want to be there. You remember when this room was tan and I couldn't stand it and we painted it and how much cooler it looked right away?
And the shelves and everything, like.
Dude, that's a whole, it's a whole science about your brain and how your physical space changes your ability to receive and give information, man. It's all, science.
It's interesting with you handling the honey badger. We're having breakfast. You're like this. He pointed to angle on the mag well back. He's like, this angle is great right here.
This one angle right here. I love this angle.
I was like, that's the biggest compliment I'm going to get from him today.
I obsess over that stuff. You know what I mean? I obsess over it. And it's like, oh man, I drive people crazy because I look at something like from 50 feet away and be like, it's a quarter inch off. You know what I mean? That's off by like an eighth of an inch. So go redo that.
Yeah.
But that is a blessing. It's a blessing and a curse. With design, it's always like the language that because there's no right or wrong. You know what I mean? It's all personal preference.
That's where it's tough, and that's where some people like Ethan doesn't get it.
Right.
Because to him, everything is math. It's right or it's wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah, not really.
Yeah. And it's also like you have to have one chef. You know what I mean? So that's very difficult to keep a look in our guns.
Yeah.
And when you want to change something, you want to do something, it's like, well, yeah, but we can't we are an Italian restaurant. We can't start making tacos, So it's like you have to keep a certain whatever, and you get 3 or 4 cooks in the kitchen, and all of a sudden you get bad spaghetti tacos. You know what I mean?
It's true. I think you guys have done overall. I haven't even seen some of the more current guns, but traditionally, aesthetically, like, and it could be because the guns are just iconic now.
We've always tried to keep the the stoner look. We tried to, because guess what? Guess who designed it? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Gene motherfucking Stoner.
Yeah, get some street cred, I guess.
Yeah.
We have Jay though.
Yeah.
So on the commercial market, is there anything that anybody can buy from Knights Armament currently?
I mean, we're filling orders. So there's all the accessories we're still taking orders and have inventory of. I mean, I got a warehouse full of stuff for sale as big as your house. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it may or may not be exactly what everybody wants or price point or
just be like
whatever.
your dad. Hold on to it another 4 years, and the cloners, it's gonna go.
I tried to do this like this from the
over.
vault thing where we started making stuff that was older, remaking stuff. I made a batch of the Hush Puppies, and I don't know. Again, we just don't have the resources to kind of do that right now. We're just trying to keep.
Yeah, it has to be very frustrating for you guys if you plan and you want to do a commercial thing, and then you get a big, and companies will do that for marketing, but with you guys, it's legit. Then you get a big military order that maybe you've been working on for 5 years. You don't know when it's going to happen. And bam, it does happen. And so, it takes precedence.
Yeah. Just labor. Again, it's like you can build all the parts you want, but you got to put them together. You got to freaking,
And even with 1 million square feet or whatever, you can only have so many machines.
Yeah.
Like, you're always limited in some way.
Again, it's the people to run them. It's not you can have a bunch of machines, but it's having qualified people to do it. Again, I can't stress that enough, that like people are, the company, whether it's my dad or all the rest of the, qualified people that work there. That's the specials. That is the magic. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I was a big fan of the, I believe it was for the SR30, the commercial you just did within the last year.
We watched it last night.
Oh, did you? Yeah, that was like my favorite thing I've seen in the last 2 years. Probably
that was a big hit.
Yeah.
What's that?
The commercial in your mom's basement
with
it was our 15.5.
15, that's what it was.
Yeah. I mean, I did that was like right when some stuff started happening. I did like a whole series of kind of slightly comedic, videos, and some people, like the comments or whatever, people, that's all you got to do is sit around and freaking make videos.
Don't you love that? Like you're the one that should be operating the machine.
Yeah. And so I still have a couple to release, but I don't know. I mean, I don't like to take all this shit too serious. You know what I mean? It's like, yes, it's very serious. We make things that kill people. That's what this business is. Okay. So it is extremely freaking serious. It's, it's heavy. You know what I mean? But I just really don't like to just have that as the main occupying force in my brain. You know what I mean? It's like you can get real heavy and negative, with that. So I like to go to work and, whether you call it have fun or whatever, I like to be positive, positive energy.
I think the positive energy and having people happy at work, laughing, they're going to be more creative. They're going to work more as a team. Yeah. They're going to be more efficient. Like and you got to, everything has to be made. If you guys aren't making guns, it's somebody else. Somebody's got to make missiles, tanks, like all the stuff's got to be made.
Yeah, it was
you don't
wild.
Have to hate life.
It was wild. I was an art major. Okay, so I went to school to study art. And I remember when I came back to work for Knights, I was like, I remember leaving and going to college. I'm never working there. And I remember, I came back and it was, I'm just going to do this for a little while. I'm just going to help my dad out. It was a real low time for the company. It was right around that time when those guys walked off with all those drawings and stuff, So he kind of had this group of people that he trusted, and they all freaking, basically robbed him. And, I went back home and I was like, man, like the fact that I'm going to spend my waking hours, all of my energy to do this, and then I started to meet the dudes that their lives depend on this. And I was like, yep. Sign me up. I'm in.
Changes perspectives, because that's people, whether it's hunting or it's, military warring, any of that. You can have like this narrow, ignorant perspective to where it is just, this is bad. Mm-hmm. But it's like, well, okay, so why?
This is totally bad. This is bad.
Why are they doing this?
This is bad. But guess what? There's somebody else with way worse intentions that's going to do bad too. If there isn't a good dude with this gun right here to stop him.
But I think when it becomes personal with everybody that works with those groups, and you see it with everyone. It's like, oh, you meet those guys, you work with them before you know it. Oh, you have a kid. I got a kid the same age. Oh, you're married. Oh, your dad's got cancer.
It's like it becomes personal. I was so like, I could have never been in the military. You know what I mean? That was just not been. That would have not suited me at all.
I think you mean it would not have suited them.
They didn't have a branch for me. But it's like, now whatever. I would say, a lot of my best friends are, former military guys, the dudes that I like, text on a weekly basis, or that come see me or come to my birthday or whatever. They're all former
Isn't
military
it interesting guys. When...
And I never would have the luxury to meet them or be in that world if it wasn't because of Knights. Yes. You know what I mean?
But, when you're young and you're ignorant about it, you think they're all going to be the same way. And then you get to, 20, 30 years old, and you meet them, you hang out with them, and then once you're the same age as some of them, and they're like, yeah, I like skateboarding. I love motocross,
Yeah.
oh, I play video games all the time. And it's like, oh, yeah, I would just think you just were born like eating glass. And you're like,
Yeah.
it's like, no, they all love the same shit.
Yeah.
And I mean, not all, but then you meet connections. Oh, I love fishing. It's all I do in my spare time. And same thing.
Yeah,
It's
funny.
just- they're
I just
just
thought of
dudes.
I just thought of 4 different guys when you said all those different things.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
race motorcycles,
Yeah.
do Baja, played
Yeah.
pro football, professional fisherman.
Yeah.
Like,
Shout out Jamie Caldwell.
yeah. I mean, because I think within 2 groups, I can't think of a single activity probably that one of them doesn't do. Their brother's not a pro hockey player.
Oh, and not
They
just on a hobby
jump
level.
with a squirrel suit.
Yeah,
all
not
professional.
on a hobby level, like highest level. You know what I mean?
It is amazing that a few of the small groups they'll be on like the Red Bull team for something,
Right.
Like some
or the trainers.
squirrel suit.
That they use those types of groups. I mean, you're talking about physical performance and mental performance, and
so they can do
it's the highest
anything.
level of that. you
So
know what I mean?
whatever other hobbies they have, they generally
like
are
it's
extreme in
successful.
that too, and really
Yeah.
good. It's
Yeah.
so interesting to see,
No.
because then it's like, what the hell have I been doing with my life? Like I'm not.
You skateboard.
I tell the guy I tell like 15 years ago when I had the half pipe and advanced armament, and like everybody would come in back then. So the teams and stuff would always, oh, I used to skateboard. And I'm like, just don't.
Don't do it. Don't
And
do
you
it.
would see, I remember a friend of ours from one of those groups. He's at Zev now.
Yeah.
Badass guy.
Yeah,
We
I
all
know who
love
you're
him.
talking about. Yeah.
And he physical specimen. Doesn't look like it.
Consider you've been blowed up so many.
Yeah, and still like best ranger or something after that. But anyway, he gets out there, and I've never known anyone that could do anything like a physical act. It just great at everything. Instantly, within 2 seconds, on his back, head bounces off the ramp, and I'm like, ooh! If that just killed him, I mean, after all,
All that shit is
and so that was kind of humbling for him, and I laughed when I realized he wasn't dead. But the big guy it was the Swedish Special Forces. He was like the head of that, and they would come over every year because we were doing silencers and stuff for them. And man, he looked like a pro wrestler. Like one of the things when you're young, you think about Special Forces, like this is the guy.
Yeah.
And he was the 2 years in a row, I think, the Swedish national vert champion in like 88 and 89. It's like, what?
Big dude, yeah.
And he,
jump right on it.
yeah, he probably looked like he benched like 500 pounds at the time. Got right on there and skated. And this is like the last guy would have
That you
ever
would
thought
expect to be able to do it. Yeah. Yeah. That's funny. You talk about like those groups and especially like the differences in the international groups. It really is like this, specific community or whatever. I love, that's something that with the commercial market, we kind of made an effort to grow that. But I'd say like over the last 5 years, 5 to 7 years, I made a really concerned effort to work on our foreign market. And that meant a lot of travel because that shit just doesn't happen quickly.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And a lot of work. You know what I mean? And we've always had certain customers or certain countries where we've sold and had our stuff and fielded. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Specifically like Australia, I think the Dutch had some of the first LMGs ever. You know what I mean? So yeah, it's kind of like this weird club. Like those guys all deploy together. You know what I mean? And they're all like slightly different, but
Yeah, I think a lot of the smaller nations too, they have to rely more on one another.
Yeah.
Once you get to that level.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've seen that as well. But that fits into Knights currently.
Oh yeah.
Like you're doing a lot of that now.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, again, it's like going back to the farming thing. You got to plant seeds and get. It just doesn't freaking happen. And you're competing with HK. So I'll say it straight up. So that's who you're rolling against.
You and I, or anyone knowledgeable about real firearms. You got to respect HK.
Big time,
Love
man.
so many things they've done.
Yeah. That's Germans.
Yeah. Yeah, they're not dumb.
No. So yeah, I would say that it's kind of like, it's another thing too. It's like, you plant a bunch of seeds, and all of a sudden everything starts to pop out of the ground at the same time, and you got to kind of prioritize what you can focus on at that point. So obviously the commercial market has taken a back seat to certainly our U.S. customers and foreign customers. The U.S. Again, we're just selling the same shit that we've been selling for a long time. But we're not really selling anything super new yet.
You were right, Jay. You were right. What have they done lately?
Yeah. Because the U.S. has really been chasing some really specific programs, and they put all their money into them. And KC made a decision that was super high risk and going to be super expensive, and we didn't want to play in that arena. Specifically the NGSAR and some of these new next level programs. And you know what I mean.
Your dad's been doing this for like 45 years.
We probably spent $5 to $10 million on next level night vision programs that were canceled after we rolled in that hard with them. And you get paid for some of it, the development, but at the end of the day, I don't have something to sell. You know what I mean? You're making them a spaghetti tacos, and you're like, you don't want spaghetti tacos. That's gonna taste like crap. And you're like, no. I really want spaghetti tacos. And you make them like, here you go. And like, man, this tastes like shit. And you're like, told you.
Well, saying that, it was one thing I wanted to say was like, even before you said that, and I think it ties in, is like your dad's getting older, and I've known him a long time, and I'm sure he's probably just as hard charging as he's been. But the thing he's got to think about too is, when you do a project like that, you can say $5 or $10 million, and Reed Knight can probably spend $5 or $10 million. But how a project takes 5 years.
Yeah,
how much time does he have to do projects? Right, and so, what do you want to pick? If you figure you've got 5 more projects or whatever the number is, you start getting pickier about what you want to work on.
That is a fact. That is an absolute fact. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I was wondering about that.
Yeah. Or you just say, you know what? I'm just going to make tacos. I don't care if anybody doesn't want them. Let me get them finished, and let me see if you like these tacos.
Yeah.
So I think and I'll just frickin' say it, you know what I mean? The U.S. government has had their frickin' head up their ass on programs for a long time. You know what I mean? They get too many people involved. They make the requirements frickin' ridiculous. They make it want to do everything. It's the whole dump truck El Camino frickin' race car
Mark
situation.
23.
It becomes a piece of shit. It's like, well, why don't we make 2 guns instead of 1 gun that sucks
or
at
something
everything,
that's great if you look at the requirement, but how the hell are you going to use it? It's the Mark 23 program.
Yeah.
We're talking about it yesterday.
Yeah.
And like, what
awesome pistol.
What an awesome pistol. It is so great, but shoots great. It's incredibly accurate, but what the fuck do you do with it? You know what you do? The government buys the minimum, and they sit in a warehouse, and then they're going to destroy them once they're worth a whole bunch of money to cloners and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, obviously the technology that came out of this went into a lot of other stuff.
Yeah.
So I can say it's maybe decent for development, but I don't want to just make stuff for a requirement. I want to make stuff at the end of the day like really gets fielded and really makes a difference.
Yeah.
And I think that
it is much more meaningful than just like making money or winning that contract. If the contract goes nowhere, it's so disappointing.
Yeah, or if they get delivered and then the users hate them, you know what I mean? Or it's a piece of crap product. It's, you know what I mean? But think about how many times they've tried to replace or make a new service rifle. You know what I mean? How many times they've tried to replace the frickin' M4?
It goes beyond that. I come from the world's greatest Air Force, and I'm not sure if you know what the F-22 Raptor is, but with the money they spent on that, they could have updated F-15s or different airframes, and then instead they go, no, let's create this new thing, and it's a piece of shit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or even if it is awesome, like they just fielded a new pistol at the Marks or the M17 6 gun. Great, but who cares? It's a pistol.
It's a pistol. Yeah. Pistols are used, unfortunately, more by the soldier on himself than in the combat.
Yeah.
So that, even though I was like happy for SIG, it's like what a waste.
Yeah.
For what could probably help.
But is that like, to me, when I see that, and I was there during the time, I wasn't very, very directly involved, but to me, that whole contract just seems like, and the way it all went down, it seems like SIG is just chasing the notoriety with that. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, are they
Well,
making a ton of money off that?
I mean, I was involved with that,
Right.
and to me, the idea of you can, if you were allowed to, give them the pistol, like over 30 years, spare parts and magazines.
Right. Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
that's not like building an SR-25. Like it probably cost $80 to
Again,
make
it's
that.
in their wheelhouse. They already have a company that can build millions of freaking
Right.
pistols
They're already
a freaking
building the
year.
gun.
You know what I mean?
Well,
So
you know,
it's
I
like-
think it's interesting when you brought up replacing the M4, for instance.
Right.
The SCAR
Yeah.
turns into a huge flop, but commercially, it seems like the gun is very popular.
Yeah.
And it military-wise,
Yeah,
I
but
don't know.
what
if
does it do better. Again, I come back to a performance requirement. It's always like we talk about the rope and the ladder analogy. You know,
Yeah.
it's like tell me what you want to do, and let me try to figure out how to do it better. And then if it doesn't perform better, when you put it on the track, if it isn't faster, then this is a waste of time.
Yeah, you don't need
Well, I mean, just look at the AR-18.
Yeah.
Okay, so there are some things like some improvements that on the SCAR probably that most of it is okay. You can use an extrusion. That's cool. That's cheap. But
Yeah.
it's like anything that's a performance enhancement. It's like the gun is 50 years newer and it's heavier than the AR-18 and
Yeah.
it's bigger. Like
so,
that's dumb.
So we'll save this for the next episode. future. But again, we're not really going to go anywhere with a rifle until we change the bullet.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And when you go to the museum and you look at every major freaking revolutionary change, it all revolves and involves the cartridge. You know what I mean? You got to change the fuel to really change something else. So that's why, with night vision, the digital world is just like stuff is going to be wild. I'm not saying that. Probably within my lifetime there will be drastic changes in digital night vision, digital everything. You know what I mean? But and that is an actual technology change. But otherwise, we got some new materials. And I think that we'll save this for the next episode to talk about all this stuff.
Going future.
I just think it's cool that like you just touched on it with the NGSW, NGSR thing. Like Knights as a company is aware enough to know like it's not what we're trying to get into. Like it comes back to SIG. I think if SIG could get a contract doing lunch trays, they would do lunch trays. Like to me, I feel like it's all about we have this contract.
No, I think that is one that's like, I mean, it really is a viable place to try to go. You know what I mean?
The contract makes
I think
sense.
it's just more about is it really, really, really possible? And it really comes down to, specifically, it comes down to the metallurgy of a barrel. And when you start to exceed a certain velocity, what is the barrel life going to be and what's the maintenance of that gun going to be? You know what I mean? That's the specific problem and the pressures and everything that we couldn't really wrap our minds around. Is like, there's not a material there. And, supposedly some of those companies have cracked the code to be able to do that, and good for them. You know what I mean? And I hope they have, you know what I mean? Because that will be a revolutionary change or whatever. But we just looked at the resources that it would potentially take and our potential to lose or win it, and it was just too high of a risk, situation for us. So, and then meanwhile, guess what we're building?
Yeah, and
These things. You know what I mean? So, and the QDC line. Now, you don't have any of our kind of current cans.
I was curious
Yeah.
if you had any of the QDCs. Or
Yeah, they're great cans. You know what I mean? But they're very much just a new mounting. And there's some new baffleology. I just made that word up. You can steal it, patented, trademark, Trey Knight, trademark that. Baffleology, in there. But for the most part, they're very similar. Technology. This other than the mount. And the mount is very much my dad. You know what I mean? It's like an air collet. Originally we wanted it to be spring loaded like that, but there's some
the ball details.
Yeah, there's a lot of really killer engineering in that. You know what I mean? It's really smart, and that's all my dad. You know what I mean? But the way it loads, the way that it deals with tolerances, the way it doesn't get stuck on there. Yeah, it's complicated, but it's also simple. You know what I mean? It's complicated to build, and that's I think kind of like a big thing with Knights is like, man, that's expensive, or that's a hard way to do that. But at the end of the day, the functionality of it and the performance of it is, and the way that a user interface is simple. And I think that's kind of a mantra of Knights is, we're going to go the extra level. We don't care what it costs to build this or design this, but we want it at the end of the day. We want the thing to be war worthy. Be able to go out in the field and live. A lot of things that people build like that in the science projects or whatever. You go take them out in the freaking battlefield and they freaking fall right off and fall apart. And,
well, I mean, I think what you just said about Knights is something that we've always appreciated about H&K.
Yeah.
They're also not going to take the easy road most of the time, and they're going to, you know.
I don't know.
You don't know?
Yeah, I mean.
I think I'm right.
That's a whole different story.
Future.
That's for episode 4.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy. You think about HK, right? Like, let's just go ahead and talk about it. That was one surviving German Nazi set of engineers, It couldn't have been the FG-42 guys got to go to Spain and save their designs. Instead, we get the roller lock guys, get to go to Spain. You know what I mean? So those guys, so it's like, that was a very luck of the draw of what HK was born on was one group of Nazi freaking gun guys, you know what I mean? Was the birth of HK. And I think that they roller lock the shit out of everything. You know what I mean? Like every single
pistols,
gun.
roller lock.
Everything. Yeah. So it's like when they finally stepped away from that specific design and they went stoner, you know what I mean? They started using a rotary, the rotary bolt.
It's funny, like if you showed anybody now the P9S pistol and the little roller, because in the MP5 it's complicated enough. Well, let's just scale it down real small. The fuck are you doing? I mean, to me it would be like if somebody in the Harris bipod has been a great invention, a great product for a military commercial mark. I would love to have $1 for every Harris bipod that's been sold. Right. But if somebody brought that to me now, it'd be like, the fuck are you doing?
Yeah, right. It's kludgy or whatever. Or just I think HK. I think some of their stuff has been over designed or.
Oh, like that G11.
Oh yeah, that's awesome. I wish I had one of those.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's just like I call them science projects. It's you do learn something, trying to go there, trying to go to the moon, or trying to go to Mars. But is there a practical use for it? Maybe not right now. So I think you always kind of have to like do something beyond what you really need, or try to chase those things, and then maybe the technology shuffles down into a more practical application.
And it can be like who's running the company or whatever at the time. Because I mean, I know some part of you loves that exploration.
Yep.
I do.
Yep.
And you got to keep the engineers interested.
Yep.
And sometimes you just look and, I can imagine your dad saying it, what a huge fucking waste of money, but then other times.
He loves that, dude. That's his jam.
Of course he
That's
does. Look at all the things you guys have done. Otherwise he would be gassed and Glock. He would be just producing the first great thing he did, you know? But sometimes you get lucky and you learn so much, or it helps you in something else you're doing, and you can really draw from that experience.
Absolutely.
But
or just getting your engineers to grow. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and to struggle. Like it's good to fail sometimes.
Oh, you learn way more from that than you do from a success.
Yeah, and if you're not, it's interesting when I watch, the engineering team that Ethan's cultivated with us, even being a small company. And Ethan's approach, which is way different than any other time I've been somewhere, and it probably is more like you guys, but it's like Ethan wants to take it, figure out where the limit is, and we're going to go a little past it, and we're going to break and destroy it, and we're going to see what actually happens, and then we're going to use that to make the
real thing.
But he goes in with that mentality, and he gets his guys into that. And I used to think it was kind of stupid.
I think in my opinion, like engineering, really to put a product in the actual production and make it successful, it's like it's really a 3 mentality situation. It's the idea guy, to have something totally new idea, you know what I mean, and then it's the guy, kind of the middle guy that makes it can actually make it, you know what I mean, gets the tolerances right, and actually makes one that will work mostly, and then. Then you got to deal with the marketing and then selling it and telling somebody why they need to have this thing that they didn't know that they needed, and then it goes back to then the production team, and it's like I think the production team is like so underappreciated as far as such a critical part of the mix of the real mix of making something that really gets built and fielded and is successful and is producible and profitable and all that stuff. It's really and typically you'll very rarely find an engineer that can sit in two of those seats. No one can sit in 3 of those seats.
Mine hate the marketing stuff, but I think with most of the big companies that I've seen, and it's one cool thing about Knights, you guys having this horsepower, your dad's still in charge, and it's still a family company, even though it's bigger. So I think you guys oftentimes, or I see with us, the communication, or with bigger companies, communication between, the design engineers and then production is usually it's too thick. It's too difficult for them to work together, or the conversation to happen, or for there to be an understanding. And I think for us, we were small starting out, but I wanted the engineers to design the stuff. And, we're fortunate, too, to have all our engineers can run machines and stuff.
Right.
But so they understand the manufacturing. But then, okay, you guys have to build the fixtures, and you have to build the first however many guns, and you have to shoot the guns for accuracy.
Some kind of cradle to grave situation.
Yes, and so we did that for a couple years. And so then what you do is you start to get them help for assembly. You get, and when we did that, now that guy's the lead of assembly, and he understands because he was working with the engineers for a year, assembling all the guns and shooting them and doing the stuff.
You go back to Stoner. Stoner was a machinist.
And they end up respecting each other more that way, and they communicate, and they don't need me to get involved.
Oh, I mean, the engineer that can just draw this part that like nobody can build, you know what I mean? And Stoner even was that way.
John Clements, everybody being machinists.
He was a machinist, you know what I mean? But still, his parts, I can only imagine, like, if he was around today, to be able to deal with additive manufacturing and all that shit. It's like, he would be like, I can't imagine what he'd be building.
Who knows? I mean, him, Browning, I mean, in some ways it's, I think Stoner was born too early.
Yeah. I mean, the contributions, but absolutely his, you even think about that gun. Well, again, it was because he stepped into the world of aerospace, and I always say typically aerospace is about 5 to 10 to whatever many years ahead of the rest of, everywhere else. So
was it interesting to you with you? And this is current, so we'll keep this in the current episode.
Okay.
But as long as you've been into guns, and then as long as I've been into guns, which is far less, but far more than most people probably now in the industry, that the Stoner is like, for these kids and the kids younger than them, like, it's the gun.
Right.
It's still the gun.
Right.
And like you said, the G36 was maybe going to replace. There's just so many guns that were going to replace. And then the Scar and all this, and it all just like big flops.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or when you go, it's like, again, when you go walk around the museum and you look at guns of the 70s or 80s, Beretta had a killer gun. FN had a freaking, a great assault rifle. You know what I mean? You had various variations of the AK and some other Eastern Bloc areas guns. But then all of a sudden, everybody's building 2 guns. It's like basically around the entire world, it's either a AR based gun or a AK based gun. You know what I mean? And now even in, some non-Western nations, they're building versions of this design. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it is interesting, and I bet you and I 25 years ago wouldn't have guessed the popularity now of the, just the M4 and how it doesn't even see, like you said, in 2003, I think, when FN came to me, silencers, and I saw the very first Scar Light, and like I was pretty excited about it. I'd seen
this is an FNC with plastic.
Well, yeah, but I remember, the heavy, I saw it first and everything, and I was like, well, we don't have, at the time, there wasn't like a 308 gun, really. Like, this wasn't really...
Bullshit. I say bullshit.
But not around. Like, it wasn't...
Bullshit.
You didn't see them.
Bullshit.
Special operations
bullshit.
Only.
Bullshit. I'm saying bullshit to that. This gun was specifically sandbagged 3 times in its life by the frickin' government. And the Navy did it because they wanted to have an M14 updated with, because they wanted to have their own successful program. This gun, would have been, and then after the frickin', after the stupid CSAS, then they come and buy an HK gun after this. This gun has been freaking sandbag, dude. This gun should be prolificated. Every soldier, if they wanted a 7.62 gun, they should have an SR-25, but it's been fucked with by the government. 100%. I'll say it right here.
I agree that everyone should have. What I'm saying is, at the time, like there wasn't in the system, there wasn't one, and
there was. They sandbagged it because they wanted to go take M14s out of the stockyard and dress them up because they wanted to have a little program to work on. Bullshit. I say bullshit to that.
Okay. So with you saying bullshit, then I see the 5.56 gun, and and I shot the heavy, and it was a lightweight version of it, and it shot fine, and they show me the light, and I was like before I even picked it up, I was like, it's bigger than the M4. And in my mind, I'm like, why would we replace the M4 with a gun that's bigger like 50 years later?
Yeah. Well, the original requirement that it would be modular between even those 5.56 and 7.62 calibers. So it was natural that the 5.56 gun would be potentially overbuilt or whatever. But then they ended up making two guns at the end of the day anyway.
Well, at this point, they already knew they were going to make two guns, and it would be so.
Well, that was bullshit because that wasn't the requirement.
Yeah, I mean? Exactly. But there was going to be so much part. You know how it's always ends up being this sliding scale. It's parts coming out. But when I saw it and then I shot it, and it's like, oh yeah, the gun shoots fine, but it's bigger than heavier than the M4. And is it more accurate than the M4? It's not. And I'm like, what is the reason for this gun? Mm-hmm. And even then, early on, I was like, they might adopt it, but this is stupid.
I just knew that it was never going to be able to perform in a precision role. There was never going to be a sniper rifle, just based off looking at the design.
And the irony of that's probably the only one that's been used in combat.
The Mark 20.
Yeah. Right. And it's way more accurate than the standard SCAR, but it's still like
it's just impossible to get there from there.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you named a couple of things, like even still, like you were saying, like my generation of gun guys, I guess, like things have come out, the G36, the SCAR, all these different things, and I promise you, everyone wants this.
Yeah,
before they want any of the other ones.
It is interesting, but I think when Trey and I were younger, it's like we didn't just have an M4. Like we had AR-15s, but we had Steyr AUG. Yeah. You had the Beretta for AR-70.
Badass gun.
Great gun. Yeah. Great gun. Got one. The AR-18. Like we had, like 10 guns that were, similar.
Assault rifles.
And they were all awesome. And it wasn't clear like what the future was going to be. But now it's like if I take my AUG out at range, it's like kids know it from Call of Duty, and it's like driving like a '63 Vet to McDonald's or whatever. You're like, what the hell? I never even seen one.
I think that the whole bullpup thing is just like that was. What happened is everybody. It's the control function. It's like, well, yeah, it may have made sense to put the gear shift over here, but everybody's been driving a car that's set up with a gas pedal and the gear shift over here, so we can't do anything. We're stuck with that. The magazine goes here, the safety goes here, the charging handle goes here. You know what I mean?
Is it better enough? It's like, you can have a shorter gun, but the ergonomics, the trigger,
you're never going to get away from the ergonomics, dude. And like the charging handle is such a trip because. When you look at the first guns, with the carrying handle and the charging handle up in the middle right there to be able to be ambidextrous.
It's way cooler to be able to reach up here and get it.
This actually, that's true unless you cover all this shit with fucking a bunch of sights and stuff. Right. So it's like this wasn't the intended purpose, but once you stick a bunch of sights up here, you can't get to all that stuff. Yeah. So it's actually, this was like a total like accidental awesome mistake to put the charging handle on the back like that. You know what I mean? That was from where all the sights are.
It was evolution that makes sense because you got to charge the gun, and you're right. Now there's sights. But you think about the first flat top AR that I had, and I'm not that old, was my gunsmith made me.
Yeah.
He cut it off and then mounted a scope
weaver rail onto
the top. Sure. Like they didn't even have them. And then not long after that, they came and you get the charging handle, you can take it off, and there was a Picatinny on it. But that stuff didn't exist even, and I'm be 48 soon. And
that's happened in our lifetime.
And and I wasn't 6 like him when I got into guns. I mean, I was in my late teens.
Yeah.
And that happened in my 20s.
Yeah, I mean the whole the ergonomics of this gun are pretty. It's pretty wild.
Pretty great.
It's just some of them were accidental mistakes. I go down a rabbit hole about the carrying handle all the time. You know what I mean? Because when you look at the original AR-10 prototypes, the first gun had a scope there. And then one of the first guns, that idea that I'm gonna freaking like your lunchbox, you know what I mean? Freaking, I'm going to battle, freaking running around, you know what I mean? It's like that whole concept of that's how I'm gonna carry my gun, It's pretty. You know.
Yeah, well, I mean, you have it
Yep.
in line. You got to get sights that you can do. And
Well, no,
stomach and
the
shit.
first ones, the charging handle was inside
Right.
the carrying handle there. But what happened was that weakened the receiver so much that they split the receivers.
Oh.
So then that's why they had to move it back here, was because you weakened the receiver.
Oh, so
too
that
much
was
by
the
cutting.
actual reason.
Yeah.
Oh.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So
Yeah,
that was
no.
a flaw in the design of cutting a big slot right down the middle of the receiver. Who'd have
Because it
thought?
is nice. Yeah, right.
Who'd have thought?
But it is nice when the charging handle's right up there. But yeah, not if you want optics and stuff. Like
Right,
that.
that's what I'm trying to say.
'Cause
Is
even
what were you putting on your freaking gun in
Well,
1950? You know what I mean?
even the
What
side-
scope were you? What red dot laser? What freaking flashlight were you putting on your gun in 1950? You know?
But even the side charging guns that have been the last couple of decades, like it ergonomically, in like the G3 or whatever, the set me gun being up there. But then when you mount optics on those,
this is a great spot.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
But, yeah.
This is supernatural.
Everybody's got it.
You know what I mean?
But then even when it's on the other side, if it's reciprocating, now you're blowing your hand off.
or if I'm in a sniper position, that's too far up there. So,
Right.
You know what I mean? It's like
But even with modern ones, you mount optics on it, and even on the side, it sucks
Yeah,
to get
bang your
to. So
hands
it
around.
ends up that you're right. In the back is the best place to get to it.
yeah.
Jesus, dude.
It's AK. You're not going to hurt it, dude. It's
Worried
fine.
about this
It's fine.
$400 table.
It's
No,
AK.
worried about that silencer, and you'll be like, I know. Well, I can get you a deal on another one, $2,200.
Yeah.
Oh, this one's cool. This one's serial number 2 USB. That's cool.
Yeah.
Serial number 8.
Uh-huh.
That's nice.
Uh-huh.
Probably sell that on Gunbroker for like $25.
I'll give you $25 right now for it.
I would
Yeah.
sell you for $25.
So I was trying to think about what else about current KC.
Current, yeah.
SR30
What's the SR30?
during
The-
the blackout.
Yeah, the R300 Blackout. I would say my biggest problem with 300 Blackout is that
He didn't do it.
actually we were doing subsonic 7.62x39 before that. So we did it. We just did it in a Russian caliber. You know what I mean? I come back to no one has standardized the ammo. Lake City is not building hundreds of thousands of rounds of 300 Blackout. And every time I go try to build a gun for somebody, a customer is like, well, send me your ammo and let me make sure it's freaking whatever. So like, even though it's a SAMI spec and whatever, there's not enough of a standardization in the ammo to really get a gun properly tuned up.
We're seeing it now
we're
during
experiencing
the
it.
ammo shortage and primer shortage. And then also, I mean, there are, it's not great in the sense of it's such a small shoulder that it's easy to fuck it up. So there are things that aren't great with the cartridge. But again, it goes into, okay, we want a 30 caliber to feed in an AR.
Yeah.
And I mean, we should have a full curve magazine. If you want that.
Yeah.
I mean, so I mean, it's
So
limitations.
you know why?
to
Do you know
everything.
why this is a straight magazine? You want to hear some history?
Yeah.
All right. So the 20 round magazine was made to be disposable. And so that's why it was made straight like that. Is so you'd get an ammo can of magazines and you'd use the magazine one time and throw it away.
10 round boxes or
Yeah.
10
20
magazine
Yeah, it just fits
boxes.
better than a curve
Yeah, you
mag.
can't put it in a freaking box. So that's why this was done this way. And then they got
So
yeah.
it's supposed to be, I think it was 10 mags and they're loaded. And yeah, it's like a grand clip.
And that's
Ding.
why the magazines are super thin and everything else is
Right.
because that was supposed to be all disposable. So that's why there's, in as far as the deficiency in this gun, the straight magazine and the lack of extra wall space to do a polymer magazine are probably two of the biggest detriments to it. In fact, in our SCAR submission, we did 2 SCAR submission. One was a very AK based gun, kind of like a SIG 552 / whatever, and then our other gun was pretty much an AR, an SR-16. With used a Stoner 63 magazine, full curve magazine, and a 45-degree rotational safety. Those were the only 2 differences. It was a very otherwise other than that, it was pretty much an M4. Cool gun.
Makes sense.
Yeah, that was super good idea. That was super practical. That was the taco. That was a killer taco.
What else? You got any current questions?
No, I mean, we touched on it. That commercial I thought was cool because it was so polarizing. Like you see,
You talking about the commercial of him in his mom's
yeah,
basement?
yeah, exactly. The SR 15.5. Just because, I mean, you said it like people were upset about it, and it's like, I mean, that's we just, as far as our marketing, we just do whatever we think is funny or
Yeah.
whatever. But I think it's so funny to see people who they don't have any stake in the company, and they recognize Knights for all the things that we've talked about as far as contracts and the military side of everything, and then they see you having fun and doing, like, you're being educational, you're having fun, it's funny, and they're upset about it.
It's a weird spot because I think a lot of people love Knights for what he says. It's like what people want is this military gun. And so they want it to be presented in this way. And it's like, okay, so that the people that work there, the people that own the company, like, we're people, like to have fun.
Right.
Have a good time.
I did
You don't
one
need to take
time
it all
about
too
like we
serious.
introduced like a new packaging that had one more or less screw in it. You know what I mean? It was so like real,
We
like the
watched it
shit
last
that we
night.
go through. You know what I mean? And so I love it when like who am I making something for? Who?
Right.
Like, partly myself or whatever to be funny. But when you have a procurement guy come up to you at a show or somewhere and just start laughing and be like, "Man, that was so funny," and it's like, you're the dude that I made that for. Like that was for you. You
You
know
have
what
to
I mean?
have a whole new SKU because they want an extra screw.
one extra screw. Yeah.
So that's like so like.
Can't I just give you a bag of 5,000 screws?
Yeah, right. So that was like an exact like procurement. So like that's a joke that only the procurement guy gets or whatever. But
Right.
yeah, you know who you make a commercial for. I mean, the biggest problem, you know, that I've had with the marketing is like we haven't had products. So it's like, what are you going to do? Go out there and talk about, you know, something new or something you're making for somebody else that they can't buy? That just pisses everybody off.
Yeah.
You know? So
Yeah, for me with our marketing, you think about like, well, if it weren't COVID shows and all that, and I'm like, that doesn't make any sense for us. But we do need to stay relevant in some ways and on people's mind, and we can do that very easily and inexpensively through social media or, you know, new product launch. But, you know, now, isn't it interesting in our lifetimes too, in our lifetime, in our careers, the internet happened.
Yeah, right.
And then social media and
Yeah.
like all these things tools that we didn't have. That's where we talked about in a podcast before. And I don't, because is Knights Armament is on Instagram? Yeah, they have
They
Instagram.
are. I don't.
See, you're not even
they don't.
into it. And think about this, you know, how long is it going to be before Instagram shuts all the gun accounts down?
100%, dude.
And how are all these young kids that have always had social media?
Yeah.
They're going to shrivel up and
You're
cry.
gonna have to get out the Shotgun News and read to the back pages. Remember that, dude?
Yeah.
Shotgun News.
Oh, you get it and you start looking through it
Yeah.
because it's where people would advertise like
Any-
rare
everything.
machine guns for
Oh,
sale. It's
yeah.
like first come, first serve. You got to call the number and talk to the guy. Like little classifieds, not like Tinder. Grind or what. But they, but I've said that before. Like to me, I just want it to be a level playing field. And like Instagram is fun for me and I enjoy it. But when they're all shut down, I know I'm going to be fine because I survived before we had that.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, like SHOT Show this year is like going to be such a boondoggle or whatever. We're still attending, but it's like,
Oh, you are?
yeah. But you know, we're not bringing a lot of product. Our booth is going to be extremely empty. We have a lot of meetings. We usually typically have to be at SHOT Show for that, purpose. So we have a lot of meetings.
International.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're going to be, but as far as out in the booth, it's mainly I'm going to have my poor sales guys, my poor commercial guys are going to be sitting out there freaking with a big book full of orders trying to tell guys when they're going to when their tacos are going to be ready.
Yeah.
Well, is the U.S. military and government allowing people to go to it? Do you know? Because of COVID and all they are?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, we have some meetings we might have to attend.
Oh, yeah. I know. I think, well, this by the time this comes out, SHOT Show will be over.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to, I know we're doing a range day thing, and then Ethan wants to go see some, but you know, he's looking at all the
He
stuff.
wants to go see that Britney Spears is not in Vegas anymore, Ethan. You're gonna,
He wants to go see, like, you know, barrel making equipment and
Sure.
like
Yeah.
just all that sort of stuff.
go to Austria. That's what they keep talking.
Yeah, there's some guys that'll be training out there that week that want to have meetings with old Q LLC.
Oh, great. I was hoping to avoid Vegas the rest of my life.
Yeah, I could do without Vegas the rest of my life as well.
Yeah,
I've done that.
we've had our
Been there,
fun.
done that.
Yeah.
It's a good run.
Oh.
I wish they would move it to somewhere else. That'd be super cool. Just like
Omaha, Nebraska.
So it used
Yeah,
to be in
no,
Orlando for
it-
it went out there, and that's like 45 minutes from their shop. That was cool because they had an event. That's where I got this cowboy shirt, Knights cowboy shirt.
Yeah.
So Knights, when they set up IMT and just collection, part of it was on display. they bust people from SHOT Show.
We had
during
2,500
tours.
people there, dude. You think
Oh,
having SHOT
shit.
Show is a part to have a booth and get ready for SHOT Show? That's cool. And then also have 2,500 people over to your house.
Yeah.
You know, we had
2,500 people in their house. You could all be in there and not see one another.
Yeah.
Like,
We had the first year we did it. Freaking Kalashnikov showed up, dude.
Never heard of him. I mean, Jim Fuller.
well, thank you for
Anything
this
else?
one.
Yeah.
And we'll just roll on to 69 plus 2.
Yeah.